recently received a question about identifying trends in particular areas of litigation. So rather than just looking for individual cases that match keywords, how do you identify what's going on in an entire area of the law? So are more cases being filed? Are they settling more often? Are they going to trial? What's the changes in these areas of litigation? And I thought it would be helpful to show some tools to do exactly that. So the first tool I want to show you is Verdict and Settlement Analyzer. So I'm getting it by clicking on the little grid in the upper left and then choosing Verdict and Settlement Analyzer from the menu that pops up. From here, you can type in a search term that fits, and the same rules apply to Verdict and Settlement Analyzers that apply to Lexis Advanced. So all the terms and connectors you're probably already familiar with still work here. So the question I received was about the temporary staffing industry. So I'm going to put together a couple of searches, or a search, to demonstrate. Now, obviously, you'd want to drill down with some more specific terms, and truthfully, the student that asked the question gave me some more specific terms to work with. But I wanted to start with just this. And so I'm searching everything, and that's okay. Once I complete the search, I can narrow down by jurisdiction or whatever, but you can already start to see that there are some trends. There seemed to be a peak in 2010 for these cases, and then there's been a pretty sharp decline since then, based on the search terms that I've entered. And I could narrow further, and I think one good way to narrow here is going to be to narrow to employment and labor law. Or labor and employment law. So I'm going to do that, and let's see how it changes our results here. Still pretty much the same. I'm still seeing that trend, and as I scroll down, you can see I get a lot more. Now, these are difficult to read on the screen, so if I click in, you get a lot more information about what went on in the case, and I can always back out of that as well and go in to see, the awards dollars and that kind of information, and get more information about what happened there. So that's one trend. The other tool I wanted to show to identify trends doesn't relate to this particular area. I'm just going to use a different case. The idea behind this approach would be if you have a case that every one of these sorts of litigation refers to. So if you're trying to identify trends in reproductive rights or abortion, you might mention Roe v. Wade as an example. So you can expect that most cases dealing with this area of law are going to at least mention Roe at some point. When you've got a situation like that, you might go into regular Lexis. So I'm just going back out to the regular research engine here. And what you're going to do is type in the citation to that case preceded by the prefix shep. All right, so all we're going to do is skip going to the case. We're going to go directly into the Shepherd's case. So I'm going to use a case called Kelo v. City of New London here because it's a good example of identifying this trend. So I'm in the Shepherd's report, and I'm not even really interested in that. I'm only interested in a couple of things. What I want is, number one, I want to make sure I'm on the Citing Decisions tab. And secondly, I want to look at this little graph right here. It's a pie chart on Lexis. Now, you can see this is not a pie chart. That's just a graphic to indicate that there's a graphical representation of the data. So this first thing isn't really a trend. It's just showing me the analysis across all courts by how it was treated across all courts without any regard to time. But if I scroll down just a little bit, everyone misses this. This is all courts combined, but across time. And so you can kind of spot trends here too in some cases. So I can see that as we move further over, it does seem like we're getting more cautions toward the front. It started out very cautious, it kind of leveled out in the middle, and then it's getting more cautions off to the more recent cases, so from 2014. And so you can kind of spot trends with that as well. The other big one, though, and I would be misleading people if I didn't show them these tools in particular. We're going to start with that same search that we did earlier. So temp within 3 of staff or employee. Again, I'm going to search everything. But this time, rather than going to cases, when you're looking for trends, looking at an individual case or an individual case search is probably not the best way to go. Better way to go would be secondary materials. And so here you're going to find not just things like ALR and AMJUR, which actually normally I don't pitch ALR and AMJUR, but they are good tools to help you identify trends. But there are sometimes better tools. So under secondary materials, not just ALR and AMJUR, but other things that tend to be more focused on individual areas of law. So these are, local authority employment. We've got Butterworth. We've got all sorts of different tools here. Law 360 expert analysis, for example, might identify trends. These are pieces written by experts in the field. And in the case of Law 360, regular and recent pieces written by experts in a field, these are going to highlight trends. So I would probably spend some time there. And here's the big tip that people tend to overlook. If you're using secondary sources for a particular term set and you're trying to identify trends, one of the best things you can do is actually search for the word trend. People always tend to forget that you don't always have to have a perfect legal term of art here. You can look for trends in this way by using the word trend. You just have to think about how people would write about this issue. I hope this has been helpful. Of course, you can always reach out to me, and the next screen is going to show you my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out when you have questions.